So before we start, I just want to get you to introduce yourself.
Sure. So I always have a tough time with this question because I've done so many different things. But I'm currently an executive coach, and I've made a transition into executive coaching after 15 years of running my own business as a digital marketing strategist. I've had a chance to work with a number of different organizations, locally, nationally, internationally. So for example, like Yamaha Motorsports was one, Intact Insurance, Parks Canada, and I'm sure microphones. Parallel to all that, created a few different curriculi, Mount Royal University, for University of Calgary, and for the Canadian Marketing Association. So I've been in that space for a very long time. I decided to make the transition to executive coaching because that's something that was a thread that I found about 2013 that I've dragged with me for another 5 years after that until I finally decided to make the transition. And so I currently work with entrepreneurs, with executives, with high-level professionals and senior leaders, and we help them break through uncertainty. We help them lead better, lead with authenticity, and make an impact.
Yeah, and dare I say, become extraordinary in all levels that they want to be extraordinary in.
That's
Th-
that's something that I've landed on. It's that I happen to work with extraordinary leaders, and it's been amazing. The craziest thing is that this is something. The first time I had a taste of actually going through the training program to do what I do now. The first foundational course that we did, I was like, this is a calling. And then now, in the situation that we're in right now, we're recording this during the COVID crisis. And when that hit, it was a call to serve, one of the most profound things that I've experienced. And I feel so blessed to be able to do that.
yeah, man, absolutely. And you were challenged. There were some things that you were experiencing during this transition. What were some of those challenges that you were experiencing before we did our work together?
With the way that things have worked out for me in my career, there's always a number of different parallel things. So I feel like I've been in this perpetual existential crisis since I've known you, trying to figure out what the right next thing is, to have a very clear vision to hold on to. I knew that I wanted to do something. I knew there was something greater, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. The weird thing is that as a digital marketing strategist, someone that's worked in marketing and branding, et cetera, I could do that for other people, but I could never really clarify for myself. What resulted as all of that, there was this a pressure and a churn and a yearning for clarity that would give me an idea, like, this is what I'm working towards. This is the vision that I can anchor into. And instead, it was a lot of waffling, trying things, kind of being very tepid in the way that in the way that I took action, in the way that I positioned myself, and the way that I made it clear for myself to say, this is what I do. Here's my contribution, and here's the difference I can make in the world. And so that's been very difficult for me to clearly outline. I can specifically say for 3 years, but probably even longer than that. For me, where all of this started from was I had my mom passed away in 2012, which then set me off on a completely different trajectory. And one of the things that I ended up doing as a result of that, I came across an article that said that it was written by Sir Ray Avery, where he talked about we have 30,000 days of life to live in total. And then based on that, he would do different things. And so, when I experienced the passing away of my mom, like, that really crushed me, and it changed a lot of things for me. And then when I read that article a few months later, that got me to thinking, what am I going to do with my time? How can I make a contribution? My mom has done a lot of really amazing things, and she was a hero of mine, and still is, in the way that she's made an impact, how she made people feel. And so I thought about that ever since then. And so as one of the things that I did is I interviewed over 130 different executives, leaders, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, thinkers, and writers. And so I was looking at what is it that's meaningful work to them, and how can I have that feeling.
Mm.
And so as a result of all of that, that set me on this journey to figure out what meaningful work is for me. And I wasn't able to really clarify, which is the other part of the reason why I found our work so valuable.
In terms of the work that we did, and you really, I would imagine you didn't really have any, you had an idea of what it might be, but you really didn't know what was going to happen, or what was going on. Would that be true to say?
Um, the way that you described it to me, it sounded somewhat similar to some of the exercises I've done before, but like I said, it's hard to do this for yourself.
Right.
And but then when we ended up going through the work, going through the process, it's it's such an interesting process that it unlocked a lot of things, and I said a lot of things that I probably thought about but didn't verbalize out loud. It was a huge amount of value to have that experience.
Mm. What happened for you during the exercise? Explain a little bit about that for yourself.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like a process that, how long did it take us? A couple of hours?
The exercise itself was under an hour.
Right. Well, it felt like it was a couple hours.
Yeah.
So it's like, not in a bad way, in a really interesting way.
Hmm.
So what happened is that I was able to visualize, and because I tend to visualize things, I was able to visualize a future where I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but almost self-actualized. In that space, I was able to see what that was like. So that created a lot of clarity and a lot of direction, and it gave me this anchor to hold on to afterwards, which was really incredible. But during the exercise, I don't even know how to explain. I think that's the hard part about it, is because it's hard to explain. The experience, it was like taking a time machine a number of years into the future, and then observing yourself as that future person, and just kind of like looking at what they're doing, what their accomplishments are, what they've been able to, for example, achieve, who they've become, and then bring that back into the present. So it is a difficult experience to explain clearly. It is something that was a monumental shift for me.
Yeah.
It's something that I needed for a very long time. That I was looking for a solution for a very long time. I read a bunch of books. I did a bunch of exercises, and this was very, very different. I point to, like, I have a one, two, three, four, five, like a giant bookshelf here that's full of different books and things that I've tried. This was the missing link.
Yeah. Amazing. We took you on a journey into your future, and you got to vividly see it and have it be recreated for you. And so when I shared your dream back to you, what happened for you during that moment?
Well, I'll kind of explain it a little bit differently. So when we finished the exercise and we hung up and we ended the call, it was a little bit weird because I was like, I don't even know what just happened. Like I
Ah,
said,
yeah, yeah.
I felt like a couple of hours, but it was one, apparently less than one. And it was kind of it was a very interesting experience. And then so that was a kind of like a surreal experience, and then you go back into everyday life. And then when we ended up doing a debrief a week later, it brought all of those things back. And here's what I found the most valuable: for the longest time, I wasn't able to put the words around what it is that I do, who it is that I am, what value I bring. There was a lot of ambiguity and kind of fluffiness isn't the right word, but a lot of like softness around all of that, because I was trying to be different things and trying to explain myself in different ways to different people. And so then what happened when we did the debrief is that you reflected everything back to me that you and Aaron created. And so it was graphical, and it was also the story that you created. I think that, and those two work together really, really well. I listened to it a few times since, and I still get emotional when I hear
Oh,
it,
that's amazing.
because like I've shared it with my wife. We both cried. I shared it with one good friend. I don't know if I'm going to share it with anyone else anymore. For me, it was such a powerful experience to have this vision and have it reflect and have it be real. I think that's the other part about it too, is because often if we go through any kind of visioning work, we'll create something, but it's not real. This made it very real because I can see it, I can touch it, I can print it. So that was one thing. The second thing was having the words to explain all of these things that I didn't have words for.
Mm.
And I think that's the magic that you specifically bring to the table, is with poetry, branding, all of those things are this like magic sauce that makes this very different than something you would do in a book, like for example, Designing Your Life, which I also have.
Yeah, and you get it echoed back to you from another lens of the world, another lens of yourself. There's a fresh perspective that shows up, because I'm not attached to those things like you might be attached to getting it right and getting it perfect, the 22% as opposed to the 25%. And so for me, it's very simple just to reflect back what I heard and
Mhm.
remove all of the story that we might add to it if we were to try it ourselves.
Well, the other thing that I would also add to it too is like if anybody's done any marketing or branding work, it's hard to read a label from inside the jar.
Hmm.
And so if you take that to a personal perspective, there is a certain brand, there is a certain personality, there's a certain way that people see you, and the value that people see in you that you don't always see in yourself. And so I've experienced that a number of times. And people would say certain things, and it's just like there's always that tinge of doubt. It's like,
Hmm.
is it really that? Like, thanks for saying that. This was like an interesting antidote to all of that.
Yeah, yeah, really cool. What are you doing with it now?
Well, so I've taken the debrief that we did over Zoom, I've chunked it out, and I kind of have three different videos that I've created out of it, and then I created audios out of it. So when I go for a run, I listen to it,
Mm,
to kind of anchor me back in. I've shared it with a couple of folks. I've taken the graphic elements, I split them up into a couple of different desktop backgrounds. And then the other thing that I've taken, there was a few things that I said, then both of you guys have taken the words and the things that I said and turned them into a thing, which I don't want to share right now because I don't want anybody to steal it.
keep it
But
surprise.
but I'm now taking those phrases, those words, and those ideas, and putting them into reality.
So there is clearer directions to take as a result of the big dream that got captured, and you're just taking those steps now, whereas before it might have been what do I do next? Like, I could do that, I could do this. That's not really there for you anymore.
I mean, there is some of that, but it's like it's a very different context. So
Hmm.
now I'm looking at it. There's all of these other things, but how are they in the service of this one thing?
Right.
Or this one vision, I should say. And so I have the why and where I'm going. I have the why and the where, and now the how is just starting to click into place. And I think that's the biggest thing, is because like um, it's not a goal. It's a direction. A goal, you can say, by the end of this year, I want to make this much amount of money. By the end of this year, I want to grow my company to be this big. By the end of this year, I want to do whatever. And so you set a very specific, smart goal. For example, if you don't achieve it, it's crushing. If you do achieve it, it's unfulfilling. Whereas this is a direction. Am I contributing to this? And then if so, there's a lot of fulfillment, there's a lot of meaning, there's progress, and it's a very different kind of experience than just setting a goal.
It's the journey as opposed to the destination.
And that's something that I've struggled with. I know a lot of folks that I coach struggle with. A lot of the high performing, high achieving folks have that kind of goal mentality, and after some time they get adjusted to it, and it's unfulfilling. This kind of an approach is focused on making a contribution towards something. So and then also, like, the other cool thing is that this is what I often do with a lot of my executive coaching clients, is that we create something as a place to come from rather than a place to come to.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of really, really good stuff that I got out of it.
Amazing. Thank you for just jumping in and just being your curious self, and allowing us to contribute to you in that way. You allowed us to try on how do we approach this in a COVID environment using technology. We know it was
Mhm.
normally in person. So we got to try on a different way of doing it, and it worked really well. And I'm really glad that we got to do that with you.